This is Gerardo Del Real with Resource Stock Digest. Joining me today is the president and CEO of Palamina Corp, Mr. Andrew Thomson. Andrew, how are you?
Very good, thanks.
Thanks for coming on. It's been several weeks. I want to say maybe a month to 2 months, actually, since we last caught up. I can't help but notice you were at PDAC, and I also can't help but notice that you just completed the first tranche of a pretty robust private placement, especially considering the state of the markets right now. Let's go in order. I'd love to start by talking about how things are coming along with Palamina.
There's a thing they call the PDAC curse, and, if it's real, which I think it is, in the sense that this is that moment in time where people decide whether they want to play hard or not. I'm of the opinion it hit about a month early, and what we're seeing from a macro point of view is all sorts of money sitting on the sidelines wanting to play, but when the seniors move, which they have in the last 6 months, and the juniors stand still, there's a whole pocket of money that was invested last summer. And, when you see gold really move and the juniors don't move, all that money will sit because it hasn't, they don't have the premium. At the end of the day, the brokerage firms only have so many clients. So what we're seeing on the brokerage side is a real, it's still falling apart to some extent. Having said that, the private money is wanting to come in. And so when we announced our placement about 5 weeks before PDAC, we had a tremendous amount of interest. We were actually oversubscribed at one point. We increased it. And then when we actually tried to get the money in, a lot of people were coming in for less than they said they would. So, it's effectively, the way I look at it, it's the same pot of money reapplying itself within the industry. And the seniors because of the sharp drop in, July, August, they have a certain amount of cash that they're willing to dispense, but suddenly there's 60 new companies in front of them, so they're being a little bit slow. But this all lends itself to, the beginning of a bull market. This is a very typical sort of scenario. But, most importantly, you're seeing the commodities start to sharpen up and become more robust, and things like Brexit and, some of the internal problems in, places like France and Italy and even the United States now would sort of indicate that we might be coming into inflation, et cetera. So from my perspective, we've managed to attract more newsletter writers. We've got some very serious funds that have come in. They're really, what I find interesting is they're not committing a lot of money. They're sort of dipping their toe on the exploration side. But this is all a very good indication that things are going forward. Sort of in addition to that, so the use of proceeds, we're looking to close the balance of the placement by the end of March. But the use of proceeds really is to go drilling on our Veta zone. And so the rainy season is now, and we're spending all of our time. We've now got our processed airborne data, and we've also got a structural report that was completed by a PhD out of London, where we're seeing a flower structure on our main Kawasa property. So this all lends itself very well for us going drilling in Veta. And again, we're going to, in our Veta zone, we're going to commit to 2,500 meters of drilling and submitted a permitting to be able to go do that.
Now, the private placement is up to $2.2 million. I know that you're looking forward to drilling Veta. Company-wise, you have multiple projects. What else can shareholders and people that are looking at Palamina expect here for the rest of the year?
Well, we've seen a lot of interest in, because of some of the results we've put out and kind of what's happening in Puno itself. We're actually, Miramont is about to release results, I believe, on their Cerro Hermoso project. Mm-hmm. And we've seen a lot of good indications that that's going to move forward with some zeal. And so in the off-rainy season, we tend to focus on the projects outside of Puno. We have 4 of those. And so we're running very quick programs on those. And those are projects we have in-house with the view to joint venture. And we're actually seeing a lot of interest. And I really do feel this is the beginning of the Peruvian exploration boom. And if you look at Miramont's price, partially because Quinton Henning is part of it, and again, Oren is another one that comes to mind with Ivan Baybeck. Those projects are also being drilled. So I think what it really boils down to is Peru hasn't seen a lot of drilling. There's tremendous upside opportunity for those companies that were able to either title property or get involved 2 to 3 years ago, where they've got some runway to be able to find things. And we're just starting to see the beginning of that boom, and it's attracting a lot of, we're early is really what it amounts to. So I'm pretty encouraged by the market generally overall. It's really starting to move. We've got a play 14 kilometers southwest of Cerro Hermoso, which is the one that Miramont's about to put the results on, in the same geology with very similar historic numbers. And that, coincidentally, was one of the projects. We've already had the project title because we staked it, I think, over a year ago. And so, we ran a quick program, but we've actually got joint venture interest in it already, and they haven't even put out results. So it leads me to believe that, in the cycle, Peru is about to have a what I would call a sunny period.
Excellent. Talk to me about working in Peru. Obviously, like Mexico, like everywhere else, like real estate, it really is local, right? Municipalities can change drastically within, a few kilometers. Talk to me about where you're working and the overall environment there.
Well, I think there's sort of two trains of thought, glass half full and glass half empty. My experience anywhere that I've operated in the world is, you have to be very transparent and you have to be very upfront as to what you're doing. And so we've been very, on our Kawasa project, where we're going drilling, we've given out food packages to the locals during the fairs. We have a Quechuan speaking engineer that, where we have meetings with the communities following radio spots where we're bringing people out. But we've got 90% of the community on side, and I think it's wrong to say this district won't work and this will. I think it's really about having an ongoing relationship with these communities, and I still feel, as I'd like to say, there's a lot of Polish people that won't go to Vancouver. There's a lot of people in East LA. There's southern Memphis. However you want to look at it. There's all sorts of areas of the world where there's problems, but really what it amounts to is just making sure when you establish a presence in the community, you don't oversell yourself, and that you carry yourself, as what I would call on what I would call North American rules. And we're they've tried to formalize the informals in Peru, Madre de Dios, which is one of the, the watershed of a lot of the orogenic belt. They've actually gone in and they're trying to save the rainforest by moving in troops to change the way things are going. So Peru is moving in the right direction, in my opinion. And I'm curious to see whether or not this next boom, which I think is just starting, how it's going to change Peru, because not unlike South Africa, they're dealing with a lot of internal politics where there's a very, what I would call a poor lower class is struggling to get ahead, that all they want is subsistence and education for their children. And then you've got sort of what I call the upper class of Peruvian mining companies who, it's not that they disregard them, but I think that they, there has to be some accommodation, and I really feel strongly Peru is one of the most mineral-rich countries for both gold, copper, and silver, and so, it just is at the point now where I think it's going to boom again. So, for me, when dealing with communities, again, I think it's specific to the companies in terms of how they handle themselves.
Well said, Andrew. Well, listen, I hope that you come back on soon. I expect a busy year of news out of Palamina. I tell everybody, if I'm talking to a company on air, I'm likely biased. Palamina is no exception. I'm a shareholder.
Right.
I plan on being a shareholder indefinitely. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, Andrew?
Well, I think the most significant thing, again, is that we spent, the rainy season starts in early December, and we've got all the process data from we're the first people to fly the Puno orogenic belt, and the gold occurs with pyrrhotite, so we can see structure. We had a structural geologist out, followed by which we had a PhD out, and we're seeing this flower structure, which is, we've got remobilization, and we think that is one of the petals, and that there's a source to it all. And what I'm really excited about is that this, the strike of this thing just keeps getting bigger. And right now, the Veta zone is at least 2.5 times the size of the contiguous Crucero deposit that gold mining owns, and that's a 2 million ounce. It's a million indicated, million inferred, and we've got 602 grams at surface where they had nowhere near that, and we're getting in some of the other zones we're getting 3 meters at 30 grams. So, from my perspective, we've had a very positive last 3 months in terms of getting all of our reports done, putting all the data together, and seeing out the other side something which, again, I think we're going to hit gold. It's whether or not we get continuity that's going to be the key. Because if you go look at our channel results and our latest presentation, it seems obvious there's a fair amount of gold at surface. But at the end of the day, really what we're trying to establish is whether we have open pit ability and whether there's consistency within the system. If we can establish, either one of those, we're off to the races.
Well, there's only one way to do that. I'm looking forward to drills turning. And again, I'm looking forward to having you back on, Andrew.
Okay, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.